Alright, so now that you have some experience using MongoDB with Python and straight in Compass, let's see if we can get it going with Java. Before we get started, I want to let you know that there's a place called codewars.com, which if you want to become a better programmer is a really great place to go. They have a lot of different languages. So you can see everything from Clojure and C, Python, PHP, they even have SQL challenges, Java, JavaScript. So anything you want to get better at, and you don't need a separate account for each one. You can sign up for whatever languages you want. And also the nice thing is you can choose your own difficulty level. And once you solve a problem, it shows you solutions from other users that have been voted as very well solved, or a crafty solution or what have you. So you can actually learn a lot just by looking at other people's solutions. And yeah, so that's recommended. I try to do one every couple weeks just to keep programming. Also in that vein, I know that a lot of you use NetBeans. One thing that you can do also is you can sign up at JetBrains with your school email, and you can get all of their professional software for free. So the IDE that I use for Java is called IntelliJ IDEA, and I just signed up with my school email, and you can see right here it says for educational use only, and you just have to renew it every year. So it is built on NetBeans, and they have a community edition, so it's not like if you get used to it and then you graduate, you're out of luck. It's very, very similar to NetBeans, just has some nice features. But then also you can get all this other stuff, right? So there's Go for the programming languages, there's Ruby, there's PHP Storm, PyCharm for Python, WebStorm. So there's all these types of software that you can use. You can download their professional editions for free if you sign up with your school account. Alright, so how do we use MongoDB with Java? That is the topic for today. If I click on this getting started with the Java driver, it basically tells me there's 3 ways to do it. I can use Maven, Gradle, or I can download the library myself. So you can see here, if I click on that link, it says prerequisites. I have to have MongoDB running on my local host because that's the easiest way to do it. We can connect to our Alice instance. We'll do that later. And then we need a MongoDB driver. So let's go over to the installation. And it says basically there are 3 ways to do it. So we can use Maven, which is what I think most of you are using in NetBeans. And then you just put this code in your Maven dependencies. If you're using Gradle, then you put this in your Gradle dependencies. Or alternately, you can download the actual driver itself. And if you want to do that, it says you can download the MongoDB driver directly from Sonotype, but if you need to download the driver manually, you also have to download its dependencies. Remember binary JSON, BSON, and the MongoDB driver core. So if you click on that, it takes you to the download pages. So we are going to try using Maven because I think that is what most of you will be using and is probably the easiest. Alright, so I have my IntelliJ IDEA running, and I'm going to create a new project. And I can define SDK if you're using 8 or 11, doesn't really matter. I am going to go ahead and create it from the Maven option down here. The group ID is just the package for our project, so we can call it whatever we want. I might just call it edu.winona.bartus. And the artifact ID is just the name for the project, so I'm going to call it, I don't know, Mongo test. How about that? And the version is a version, doesn't really matter. So you can fill those in with whatever you want. It's going to create the project name, Mongo test. It's going to put it in this location, which is fine. And it should start up. All right, and right away it says Maven projects need to be imported. So I'm just going to enable auto import. And there we go. We have our project. So when I start up this project, it automatically goes into my dependencies here in Maven. You can see it right here, pom.xml. This is where I am. So what I need to do is insert these dependencies right here from MongoDB. So all I have to do is literally just copy those dependencies and put them right there. And Maven will basically take care of the rest for me. It's pretty easy that way. Gradle's basically the same thing. If you're used to using Gradle, sorry, when you start your project, instead of starting a Maven project, you start a Gradle project, and it's the same. It asks you for your package and your name and all that stuff, and the format is slightly different, as you can see. If I click on Gradle, I just put this in instead, but it's literally it works the same way as far as we're concerned. So I'm not going to go through that. So now we have our dependency set up. So let's go ahead and create a new Java file. So when you start it up, probably all this menu on the left is closed. So we're just going to open up. Let's go right into the source directory, main, and we'll create a new Java class. Let's call it Mongo test. Sure, why not? Mongo test. Okay. And obviously we need our main so that we can run something. And then we'll just go back to the documentation and just keep following along. So it says these are all the prerequisites. So honestly, I'm not even going to read all of them because Java is smart enough to ignore the ones that I'm not going to use. So I'm just going to copy all of those. I'm going to paste them into top of my class right there. So none of them are being used right now. That's why they're all grayed out. And then I use Mongo client to make a connection. So I'm going to do it exactly the way they do it here in the documentation. Because I'm using the default, I don't even need to specify localhost and the port. I can just use all the defaults. So I'm just going to copy and paste that right into my code. So there it is in my main, and you can see this top thing here, Mongo client, is no longer grayed out because I'm actually using it now. If you really wanted to use your Atlas instead of your localhost, this is how you would do it. You would have, you know what, I'm going to copy and paste that into my code so we can use it later. So I'm going to put it here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment it out. Okay, so I'm not going to use those right now, but that's where I would put my connection string, just like I did in Python. But for now, I'm just going to use Mongo client because it's the default. I have the database running locally. You can check in your, if you want to, in Compass to make sure that you have the database running, which I do. So all I want to do is get a client and see if So the first thing I need to do is just build the project. Build, build, build. And let's look at the warnings. Yep, those. Fine. No problem there. So everything built successfully. So now I am going to run Mongo test. All right, so looks like we successfully connected to our local database. So that wasn't overly painful. It looks worse than it is. But let's see about, getting to our actual test collection. Our test database, our users collection, and see if we can get some of these documents out. So let's go back to the documentation. How do we access a database? We go back into our code. We say, I want to get my database name as test. Let's double check that. Yep, it's test. So that's test is my database, users is my collection. So I bet if we go back in here, we can even access a collection. My collection name is users. So my database name is test. My collection is users. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. And again, it worked perfectly fine. So we have connected to our database. We have put our entire database connection here in a database, and we have gotten our collection and stored it in a document collection. It warns us we haven't used it, but we stored our collection in it. So let's keep going. Let's try and insert a document into our database. So as you know, this is what a JSON document looks like. But we are going to use the document class in Java to create our own document in the database. So again, we can go ahead and copy this, and then we're just going to modify it to fit our needs. So I just copied and pasted it, and then in our database, we just have first name and last name. So I just made a new document with a first name and a last name. And then all I have to do is insert that document into the collection, right? So this is our collection that we got was the users. And so I'm going to insert this document. So if I run this, it's going to give me some errors. It's going to tell me about the connection. And then if I go into Compass and I reload the data, hey, there it is. All right, so that is how you connect to a MongoDB in Java. You can see some of these other imports are now in full color, not grayed out anymore because we are actually using them. These we might need for, obviously, cursor we used in Python. That's how you go through some results. You can delete, you can update. So if you go back into the documentation, you can see there's a lot of information over here. Creating indices, reading, writing, bulk writes, querying, all this kind of stuff that you can do with the database. All right, so the last thing that I would like you to do, at least explore, this is not mandatory, but highly, highly recommended, is start getting familiar with Git and GitHub is what I use. I know you're using something similar in other classes. So in this IDE, it's super, super simple. You do have to download Git though. So if you go to git.scm or just Google Git, you can get there download it for your operating system and install it. There's lots of GUI clients you can use. I use GitHub Desktop, but there's lots of different ones. You don't have to use GitHub. So anyway, once you have Git installed, you probably need to restart your IDE. Go into version control system, VCS, and create a Git repository. So Mongo test is what I want to do. And so that will have created a Git repository. And then what I need to do is add my files. So if I see this check mark up here, it says commit. I want to commit to my repository. It's going to say, oh, look at all these things that are not yet in my repository. So I'm actually just going to check all of them. I'm going to say initial commit. And adding a good message is really important, because when you look back, one nice thing about version control is if you make some mistakes in your files and you want to go back to an earlier version, if you have a good comment here, it will help you figure out exactly where you went wrong and where you want to go back to. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, you probably can't see the bottom. There you go. Now you can see the bottom. Click the commit. Okay, so now everything is on my local repository. So this is still only on my machine. If you want to have it up in Bitbucket or in GitHub or another repository, you can. Again, you can do it right from here. I use GitHub, so I'm going to share the project on GitHub. I've logged in, and the repository name is going to be Mongo test, I don't know, with Java. Why don't we call it that? Okay. Oops. No spaces. Mongo test with Java. So you can see down here it's pushing to GitHub master. It's asking me to log in again. Successfully shared project. So that's literally it. If I go into my GitHub account, it's right there, Mongo test with Java, and you can see all of the files are here. Here's Mongo test Java. Here's the one I just created, right? And you guys can check this out. Literally check it out of GitHub if you wanted to. You know, the dependency file is here. So I think this is now a public repository. So you can just go to github.com/joebartus and you can find this repository. You can even, in the IDE, new project from version control. So you have two pieces of homework for Thursday. The first one is to come up with a MongoDB project that someone else can do. So you should try and select one that is specifically good for MongoDB as opposed to a relational database, and submit that into the Google form before Thursday, because on Thursday you're going to have to choose someone else's. And it would be great if the whole class got that done so that there's lots to choose from. Your other assignment, should you choose to accept it, is to post a picture of why you can't do your homework at home. So just go into Discord and in the off-topic channel, post a picture of your pet eating your homework or typing on your computer or something like that, and maybe we'll have a vote on the best one. Anyway, make sure you get a MongoDB project in, and I will chat with you virtually on Thursday. Thanks.